You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, to kickstart our conversation, which is on the safety of GMO foods for Nigerians, let's listen to this background put together by our correspondent, Ekene Undulwe.
Genetically modified organisms are living organisms whose genetic materials have been artificially manipulated in a laboratory through genetic engineering. Most GMOs have been engineered to withstand direct application of herbicide or to produce an insecticide. New technologies are also being used to artificially develop other traits in plants, such as resistance to browning in apples, and to create new organisms using synthetic biology. Promoters of GMO crops say the foods are healthier and cheaper to produce and may also contain more nutrients. Some other groups have, however, raised concerns that GMOs may have negative health effects, which may include rise in allergic reactions, antibiotic resistance, and cancer. In Nigeria, the adoption of GMOs has always been a subject of debate. In 2019, Nigeria made significant progress in agricultural biotechnology, approving 2 genetically modified crops, pest-resistant BT cotton and cowpea, that are said to be important to the country's economic development and food value chain. Despite the landmark achievements in agricultural biotechnology, most citizens are choosing to opt out of the GMO experiment due to doubts on the safety of consuming genetically modified crops. How safe is GMOs for human consumption? This is the focus of discussion on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And joining us in the studio to discuss the topic. First, let me introduce here in our Abuja studio, Dr. Mohammed Mahood Abubakar, Honorable Minister of Environment. Honorable Minister, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
We also have here in the studio Professor Abdullahi Mustafa, Director General, National Biotechnology Development Agency, NABDA. You're welcome, sir.
Good morning, Nigeria.
We also have via Zoom from Uyo, the capital of Akwa Ibom State, Nemo Bassi. Nemo Bassi is the Director, Health of Mother Earth Foundation. So you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, gentlemen, once again, a delight to have you join us for today's conversation. Let's begin with the Honorable Minister of the Environment. We know that, of course, this is a cross between the environment and agriculture. What exactly are GMO foods or GMO crops? Now, let the layman also understand this, because I'm sure you must have heard it said sometimes when, assuming you go to the market, they will say this one is agric, this one is the natural one. So how do you, what is a GMO crop, what is a GMO food, and how do you, on the face of it, distinguish one from the other?
Well, GMO, as it's called, genetically modified organisms. So you take one species of corn, for example, and infuse genes from either another species of corn or something that you expect to improve that particular one. You have modified the genes of that particular crop or whatever you are dealing with. So that is the modification. Now the question is, will that modification, apart from what you are expecting for it to improve, will there be any adverse effect, potential risks? These are some of the questions. So it's nothing more, nothing less than alteration of genes for whatever improvement that you are expecting from plant or animals or whatever. And of course, this may have effect on the environment, may have effect on the people that will consume, if it's something to consume, may even have effect on soil. If you are talking about plant, may change the way that particular plant even use the nutrient from the soil. So there may be, nobody is saying GMO by itself is totally bad, but let's approach it carefully. Let's understand. Let's look at the short term, perhaps medium, and maybe even long term. I mean, science changes, and from time to time you will say paradigm shift, meaning after a long time of using and believing in this, then you discover something has changed, and then you have to go with that. So that's basically about GMOs. And if you go to many countries now, you have where they will have these are GMO food, and then you have labeled these are organic, or whatever the case may be. You may choose to consume food that are GMOs or that are not. But the safety is what my ministry is concerned about, and we have the National Biosafety Management Agency in the Federal Ministry of Environment.
All right, Honorable Minister, as we make progress in this conversation, we'll also delve into the issue of the safety of GMOs. But it's important to bring in Professor Mustafa here, who is the Director General of National Biotechnology Development Agency. In fact, it is the centerpiece of biotech in Nigeria. You may have to also answer the first question put to the minister by Kinsley, for us to be able to distinguish between GMO foods or plants and the organic ones. Let Nigerians know exactly the difference.
You see, I would like to start by telling Nigerians, genetically modified organism has been in existence for many millions of years ago. It's going through from natural selection to the man-made selection, now to the technology in the laboratory. So those years, for example, could you imagine that in around 1700, the carrot that you eat is not orange? And it has gone through transformation. That 1700, now it is orange. How? Through genetically modified organism system, where a gene that give it color was induced naturally. So as you move across this development, where it was natural selection, now it comes to man-made selection, where in the past, you know that when a farmer wants to improve the quality of the seed, for example, in agriculture, he takes the quality through natural selection. He takes the male and the female, falling grain that will add to the female, and then through that, the farmer can be able to select the best quality seed that he can plant the next season. And through that, we have evolved over the years to improve on the quality of the seed that we produce. Now the technology has changed. That one, it will take like 10, 20, 30, 50 years before it will adapt, before we can select the best quality that we need. But now, using this technology, because day by day, this thing is improved. Now man has a way of going deep down into the gene and see how it can select the gene and add it to the gene, to the plant of interest. So there is also a difference. In the genetically modified organism, at times you introduce gene from a similar plant that has resistance to certain property, certain character that you want. And again, there is a way that you can modify the gene by using this technology that he just mentioned, by modifying the gene using in the laboratory, either to knock off something within the gene that is having a property that you don't want, or introduce the gene that is a property that you want. So there are different categories. And in these different categories, you cannot generalize all. Like the first one that we have been doing. The first one is natural. The second one is man-made. And now through the man-made has gone into advanced stage, whereby you go to the laboratory for quicker result. And this thing, you are saying the GMO, how safe? Yes, it's safe. It started from developed countries, like in the US, in Canada, in Australia, in Brazil, and so many more countries. And they are developing this. And they are developing these for betterment, quality, yield, efficiency of the crop of interest. We need to develop the agriculture. The agriculture is developed in many ways, but this biotechnology is the faster way to develop this agriculture, and it has been developed, and it is now working on so many aspects of agriculture, be it the crop that we eat, be it the crop that we use in our industry, be it, there are so many categories. And it's not only on crops that this biotechnology is working, in all aspects of life, health, environment, agriculture, industry, and many more. Like this vaccine that you're talking about is the technology, biotechnology that is being used to produce it. And this is a faster way of approaching, of curtailing a disaster like this. Otherwise, we will stay for 10, 20 years without producing this. And you can imagine the effect that it will cause. Now, if you, for example, say there is a pest, like this around 2017 or 16, I mean, we have what is called fall armyworm. And this one is not known in Africa. And now it is in Africa and it's spreading rapidly. How do you curtail this? You want to stay that you do things for like 10, 20 years before you curtail this problem? No, you have to use a faster technology, more efficient technology, because it involves food. It involves human life. It involves human living. And there is no any proof scientifically that this GMO is bad.
Okay, Professor Abdullahi Mustafa, thank you very much. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's go over now to Nimo Bassey, who is with us via Zoom. Kirian earlier introduced him as Director of Health of Mother Earth Foundation. Architect Nimo Bassey, give us your take on GMOs in general. I mean, our two guests here, Honorable Minister and the Prof, have indicated what GMOs are all about. And more particularly, where is the higher application? Is it in food crops or in cash crops?
Thank you very much for that question, and thanks to the Minister for his definition on GMOs, and thanks also to the DG of NAPDA for what he just said. But let also say that when you talk about genetically modified organisms, we're talking about modern biotechnology, modern agriculture. And this is barely about 25 years old. It's not millions and thousands or thousands of millions of years old. It's about a couple of decades old. And there has been a lot of difficulties in terms of doing long-term testing effects of genetic engineering on agriculture, on foods that people have to consume. Basically, as your question, whether we need food production or in cash cropping, is a very pertinent question, because if you look at why GMOs in food, in crops, is culture. One, most of them are engineered to withstand certain herbicides, which are also often produced by the people who manipulate. And if you are going to plant a crop that is tolerant to a particular herbicide, and then you plant the seed, then you spray the entire farm, hectare, with that chemical, everything else dies except the particular crop. So that for industrial production, that is good. That is good for monocultural production, but it is harmful to everything else. And so we have to look at the balance. Are we going to be promoting monoculture in Nigeria, where we know that the food system for us is based on crop diversity, is diversity. If we just to promote the commercial interests of a particular corporation or corporate set of controlling seeds and chemicals in the world, would be in a very bad shape. There are other genetics who are engineered to act. In other words, like the BT beans, they out into the farms in Nigeria that kill pests. And so when the pest of course. That has get pests who could also be harmed by this kind of engineering. Most Nigerians operate on the basis of cultural or plantation. This is why we need to consider our context in which we are operating. When you go to America, to Australia, this way GMOs are being allowed, where GMOs are being restricted. For example, Mexico is the center of origin of corn. Just banned genetically modified corn. That is very important. And it's a reason to preserve the and to ensure that the agriculture can cultivate crops and earn. Also, in terms of herbicide tolerance, that is some crops already approved are engineered to withstand. And herbicides are based on the major glyphosate. And seeing that in places like the US, cases in court against the use of with that chemical, with that element, because SARS and other diseases. In Nigeria, we could say, well, we will suit up as if they're going to herbicides or using the pesticides. Nigerian farmers most are not going to read those the packages of dangerous chemicals applying, and so Nigerian farmers.
Well, we have to return to the studio. Architect Nimo Basi, we seem to be having issues with your audio line because the line is actually distorted. Our engineers are working on it presently. As soon as we are back with you, we'll let you know. You're already telling us some important aspect of this conversation with regards to the issue of safety and all that. Honorable Minister, really, has there been any form of research into GMO plants or already GMO products, that indicated the fact that they are not safe for human consumption? Are there also any research that indicated the fact that the environment will be adversely affected if we go all out, to embrace GMO in Nigeria?
There are researches that are ongoing. You see, the thing with science, and I have mentioned in my opening remarks, it's not exact. The professor gave an analogy with the vaccine. Is there any of the vaccines that are 100% currently? No. They are 90-something, right? So 95%. So what about that 5%? Should you look at the possibility of the 5%? That is what science is about. That is what we are talking about. Like I earlier said, nobody said they are totally safe or totally unsafe. Our job is to regulate. Our job is to keep vision on what can they do. And with science, you can be doing one thing and believe in one thing for the last 20, 30, 50 years, like you said. And then only for you later to realize, oh, there is something that you have been missing. And you need to rethink and redo it. And just as he has mentioned, biotechnology or all this gene editing, gene splicing and all that stuff, it's not, that old. So there is still room for us to keep watching and expect it may or may not happen. I will not give a blanket approval to GMOs. That's why we have our laboratories, we do testing. That's why we license and we keep watching what may happen or not happen. And this is what we are supposed to let Nigerians know. Yes, for now, we need to do something to improve agricultural output, especially because of the population explosion. Nobody says that. Well, this whole thing about improving agriculture starts with the mechanization of agriculture, where you can plant, let's say, 200 hectares of land in a day or two instead of taking 3 weeks or 1 week. It starts mechanically. And then biotechnology comes in. Now, instead of having a corn crop that produces, let's say, 5 years of corn, you can now change the genetic constitution of that, and it can produce 10, or it can increase the size of the kernels of that corn. All of this, that is what it's talking about. We are not saying no, but let's approach it with caution. Let's have a robust research. Let's be open-minded and think what may or may not happen. This is what the Minister of Environment is doing. That's why we have to license laboratories that are doing this research or importing GMO. And America or the developed countries that are using GMO, why do they have sections and even charge more for the natural ones than because they have some doubt. They're not saying no, but they have some doubt. They don't know what may happen. So maybe the next generation, by then a lot of data might have been generated on GMO over many years that nothing has happened. And I gave an example of even altering the nutrient constitution of a particular soil. You can put a high-yield corn or any other plant that may just suck out whatever nutrient that is there, and other plants that have not been genetically modified may not be able to survive on that particular soil. I hope you understand the point I'm making. These are some of the things that we are not talking about. Nobody is competing to get GMO out, but there are rules and regulations, and all these developed countries are doing this. That's why they have this. There are countries that either they don't even allow, or they restrict, or they even ask for label against liability. You know, something like use at your own risk. That's right. We don't have enough.
Let me add this to this question, Kingsley.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, when there is a food crisis elsewhere across the globe, countries like America and Canada, those who are rich in agricultural produce, usually will send food items, you know, in great quantity, you know, to those crisis-ridden areas, right? So one wonders if are they sending organic food, or are they sending foods that are aided by, you know, genetic modification? Because they send these things in tons, right? And one wonders if they are all sending only organic food items to such areas. Has there been any kind of research to find out what they do to be able to have such food items in quantum to send out to crisis-ridden areas?
Absolutely. They may be sending a mixture of both, the ones that are genetically modified and the ones that are natural, using agricultural mechanization to produce tons and tons of grains over a large area of field. And that's something that we lack. Here in Africa, we have all the land. But, you know, you hardly see a farm that is hundreds of hectares in size that can produce a lot of tonnage of crops. So, yes, they might be sending both. And again, it may be, and also there's another thing about that. Depends also on how much you consume also. So now let's come to bioaccumulation with biotechnology. There are certain things that minute quantity may not do anything. You continue consuming, and if they are bioaccumulative, they remain in the tissue. They don't go out. And if they are going to be harmful, there will be a threshold that when they get to that, they can start causing issues, whether it's cancer, whether it's slow reaction time, whatever that the case may be. So this is why being cautious is all about, because like I said, science is not exact. And if we are talking about natural selection, let's go back to the pristine period, the whole environment itself before the advent of man. A lot of things are happening: flood, volcanic eruption, erosion, this and that. The environment will naturally heal itself, come back as if nothing happens. But with the interference of man, it's not the same. So the genetic selection that the professor is talking about from the very beginning, that is natural, is natural. You don't fight with nature, it's natural. So it happens by itself, and it will happen whether man interferes or doesn't, whether there is biotechnology or not. But when we consciously try to do this biotechnology using science, yes, we have the knowledge, we can do it, but we always find sometimes when we do things, there may be side effect of one thing or another, even medicine that we take.
All right, Honorable Minister, thank you very much. We were talking about natural selection, and that reminds me of Charles Darwinism, of Charles Darwin, and the principle of Darwinism, that's the origin of species. But Professor Abdullahi Mustafa, again, just before we come to the rules and regulations governing GMOs in Nigeria, we're talking now about genetic engineering, and you're saying that this is intended to boost yield in some cases, to boost resistance to pests and diseases. But tell us, Kirian, I mean, I don't know how many we have, but you've covered science and tech in the past. We have a number of research institutes relating to agriculture. You have for food crops, I think somewhere in Umudike, also cereals somewhere in the Niger State near us here, Cocoa Research Institute in Ibadan, and then Rubber Research Institute in Benin, NIFOR, which is also in Benin, which is oil palm research. What are these institutes doing? Are they the ones, are they the architects of these GMOs, or are we saying that, no, those institutes are not working hard enough, so get super genetic scientists to get the GMOs for us, and then, it's a new dawn?
Well, I don't know whether your question is directly saying what is NAFDA doing and what is the relationship between NAFDA and those institutions.
Yes, you can contextualize all of
you
that.
see,
yes.
The National Biotechnology Development Agency is being formed by the federal government to now carry out research and promote the biotechnology in the country with the vision that biotechnology is the future. All these institutions, including university, we have institutions that we are collaborating with, and we have international institutions that we are collaborating with. They are all working towards seeing a safer genetically modified organism. We are working with that one, Serial Research Institute, and we're working, that is in Badegi. We're working with IAR Zaria, we're working with African Agricultural Technology Foundation. All these ones and many more, we are working with them to see that we have improved on the agriculture in Nigeria. And all those researches that we've been doing as a result that we produce this thing that we bring to these crops that we bring to Nigerian people, that will farmers, that when farmers use is going to improve in agriculture. The various type of researches, for example, in Nigeria, we have areas that when you plant rice, it is not going to work. One is either because of drought, that is the water is not enough, or there is high salinity, or there is resistant to pests, or some other things like that. So there is a program that we are engaging with Badegi, that is Serial Research Institute of Badegi, on newest rice. We have nitrogen use efficient, water use efficient, and then this combine in one rice, and that is what we are trying to produce for the country. So it's not that we have to reintroduce. There are so many ways I've told you in biotechnology. It's not always that you knock off gene. It's not always genetic engineering. There are several ways to solve this problems that we are having in the country as approach to agricultural produce. But the way you take is the simpler way, and the way you take is the safer way. And that is why, for example, the research that we're doing with IAR Zaria for the production of this telomerase, the telomerase is being researched on so that it is going to be resistant to pests, that is, pests is not going to affect it, and then is water efficient, also resistant to drought. So this, for example, when we have this, remember we are importing tons of maize per year, and we are importing tons of chemicals per year. Chemicals to spray on the corn. If you are producing corn with this polyarmy that is introduced in the country. That is, I don't know how it comes in the country, but around 2006, now it's all over Africa. It was originating from it originated from United States, but now it's all over Africa. How do you curtail that? If you allow that fall armyworm, it is now going to destroy the home farmland, the whole corn that we produce. So in view of that, the approach was to use biotechnology to now insert the gene that is going to repel that insect so that we have more yield and more qualitative product. Remember, the crop that you are importing, the maize, just Kirian mentioned something, that the US is giving aid to some countries that are having a problem, food crisis. Now you send people to go outside and purchase maize. And this maize that they purchase, you don't know how it is produced. I'm not going to go into that, but it's better you in the country to know exactly what you produce, to know exactly how safe it is. We are here in the country, we have family, we have brothers, we have sisters, we consume it. So we know that this thing has to pass so many regulations. And this research that we are doing, for example, on corn and on new rice and the beans that has been released, they are very safe. Very safe in the sense that it has been taken. The Honorable Minister can bear me witness that there is what is called National Biosafety Development, National Biosafety, which is under the Honorable Minister's ministry. And they are there to regulate, to make sure all those items that are produced are of no harm in all ramifications. And apart from that, there is also Donald Danford Center of Plant Science in the United States. We collaborate with them. We ask them also. They have more sophisticated items, and they regulate almost, or they investigate and give report on almost all GMO crops in the world. And these have sophisticated machines that research is being carried on. And World Health Organization is there to regulate. We have so many regulating bodies that this, if it is not safe,
then don't touch it. I just want Professor Mustafa, I still would like you to address the question. I will elaborate on it further. I said, look, we have a number of research institutes into food crops, into cash crops. IITA is there, Cocoa Research Institute, Rubber Research Institute, tuber crops in Umudike, series you've mentioned. Are these institutes the ones that are getting into genetic engineering research to give us the seedlings? Or are we waiting for, is it that the GMOs, seeds and seedlings are invented or designed elsewhere and now we import them? How? What is this? What is the origin of the seeds and seedlings for GMOs that we will now plant, and then of course they begin to germinate and then have some of the consequences that the Honorable Minister and both Nimo Bassey have talked about?
You see, research is not being carried out by a single person. Research is a collaborative effort. And research has so many collaboration. Some part will be done, for example, in Serial Research Institute, Badigi, or some part will be done in IA Arzaria, and some part will be done in NABDA, and some part which requires certain sophistication will be carried outside the country. So this is how a research is being done. It's not only one single person or one single institute or one single group that carries it out. That is what is obtained across the world. And this, what I've told you, is something to do with sophistication, something to do with carefulness, something to do with following it bit by bit. So in any stage, there are groups that are specialized in such particular group. So you cannot say it's only one institution that carries out that particular research. It's a combination of institutions. So that is how it is. I hope I answered it.
Let me also stay with you, because NABDA has been in existence for getting to 2 decades now, if I'm right. And NABDA has also been involved in genetically modified organisms since that time. But I want to ask you this specific. I know you just took over a few months ago. Has there been any genetically modified crops or plants or farm in Nigeria for experimentation? Has there been any? So that we can say, okay, that in a particular farm, it is what is planted there is genetically modified. So after harvesting, you know, I say, look, this corn or whatever crop that it is GMO Nigeria. Do you have such plans? If it has not been in existence before, when do we hope to have a GMO product, say corn, whatever crop that it is, yam, cocoyam, and what have you, so that we can now say, look, this produce is born out of GMO.
Remember, we have released some about using the National Variety Release in Ibadan. We have released cotton, and we have released cowpea, which is beans, and it is now in circulation in the country. And the research that is going on, I think, on maize, that is telemaize, is now restricted to a farm in Abuja area, and that one is also going on. And you know, the research is on for about 5, 6, 7, 10 years, depending on how we reach to the end of the conclusion that this is the actual product, and then it will go to safety tests and what have you. Yes, we have farms, of course, and any of the crop that is being produced, it has to go to regulation. I mean, even the trial that you are going to do in a farm, it has to go through regulation. The National Biosecurity Management Agency is there to regulate, to give you a certificate for the confined trial, and to give you a certificate each year, and every year it's renewed. So that is their function. It's not that anybody can wake up and do whatever he wants. No, there is regulation, and it's regulated by Federal Ministry of Environment. And the Federal Ministry of Environment, through National Biosecurity Management Agency, will give you certificate on that particularly.
So there's no GMO food in circulation in Nigeria at the moment, maybe in our markets?
Of course, that's what I told you. It has been released, the cowpea and the cotton. Remember, the cotton and January industry now is being revived because a lot of people now are planting this cotton, and this cotton is resistant to the bollworm that is affecting the cotton ball. So that is what is in circulation. Now we have high yield cotton. Remember, the cotton industry and all the January industry is dead. But now with this cotton that is being produced, a lot of farmers have gone to the farm and they are now producing cotton. So it's in circulation. So yes, that's what I'm telling you.
Zamfara is a major cotton production center. We hope the farmers are able to go to the farms, actually. Honorable Minister of the Environment, you wanted to say something in response?
No, just the straight answer to your questions. The origin of GMO here in Nigeria, of course, GM, genetic modification, started outside of Nigeria from developed countries before coming here. And then another question which partly has answered, yes, here currently we are doing our own research, government, institutions, and even private sector, to modify our own crops here. So these two things, direct answer to the question you asked, are currently going. But the very first ones are import from outside, because from the very beginning, we did not start anything about genetic modification. But it was after it started outside that we are now not only importing but genetically modified food, but also now we are doing our own modification of our own local crops.
Okay, but thank you very much. Let's see if we can reconnect to Nimo Bassi. Nimo Bassi, sorry, we had issues with your Skype, with your Zoom connection. The audio, as my colleague Kirian pointed out, the audio was halting. Perhaps you want to kick off from where you stopped, also respond to the comments already made by Professor Mustafa and the Honorable Minister of the Environment with regard to, look, the availability and availability of GMO foods in Nigeria, and what precautions we just need to exercise at this material time?
Sorry about this. There are several GMO food in our market shelves today in market shelf survey, on many of them in very common vegetable oils, in cornflakes. We used to make ice creams and pancake. It's really disturbing because sure, if they were approved before they came into the, and I would just like to comment on one labeling. It may be easy to label foods in the global north, in America, in Europe, because even if you're likely going to find a sticker on it came from. But in Nigeria, you cannot label the corn that's been roasted. You cannot label the akara that has been sold. And so the issue is that Nigerians are able to know what they are eating. I would GMOs can be, we can continue with the research institutions to do research about the applications that we can invest our resources. But in terms of food, I think we're rushing too fast into this, and it's unpredictable. We don't have the help that can handle the crisis. We're already seeing dead things are happening to us in communities in both everywhere concerning the use of agriculture. Now, if you are monoculture, this not it doesn't recognize system. It doesn't recognize the place of who are the ones feeding us. It is of destroying our farming and system. We should be extra. I know NAFDA's job is to promote Biosecurity before the law was made, and they've been mostly about agriculture, but they have a lot of they should invest in. Let them do something that is directly needed by Nigeria and for medical application, and leave the food sector. Let the Ministry of Agriculture, Environment Ministry, to promote the extension services in Nigeria, help Nigerian farmers to thoughts that are in consonance with, rather than using artificial means.
Well, Architect Nima Bassi, we are still having a persistent, failure of your signal, and we cannot continue with that for now. Let's hope that in the time we'll be able to reconnect with you, and of course hear more from you, because I think you have he has a different view in all of this, because he's also asking NAFDA to engage in other aspects of research
rather than agriculture. But part of the point, and I think the Honorable Minister was speaking to that, to say, look, are we having a food crisis, whether of our cash crops or, food crisis that will relate to food crops, or even for our cash crops? Because one of the elements missing today is mechanization. Mechanization. I mean, when you it's not you can hardly see it when you are driving, but when you are flying at a certain altitude, you just see these little patches of farmlands. It's basically subsistence. Yeah. Unlike the geometric figures you would see in other developed countries, you can be flying for several minutes and you just look down and you keep seeing these fantastic outlays of farmland. So, in terms of policy, well, are we just seeking to say, oh, this is GMO, they have research on it, bring it, put it in our soil without due consideration that perhaps research is already going on? But to say, look, what we have in the meantime, I hear something 82 million hectares of arable land that we have, and we are barely doing 10 or 20% of that. So look, mechanize, and you don't do mechanization by wearing a tie and a suit in the office. You get the tractors on the field.
You are talking about mechanization when we just had in the news that we have moribund tractors. So we don't have enough tractors. We need about 2,000 tractors to be operational on daily basis, or 24,000.
And then you are producing, there are graduates of polytechnics who can fix those tractors for you. All right, Honorable Minister, so is our priority right, in rushing to get GMOs, or should we first incubate them and then see what is suitable for our environment? Because ultimately that is the greatest concern, I believe.
Yes, see, as an environmentalist, I think the best way is to do what is natural, and I will keep referring to the natural selection or nature that the professor mentioned. That's the best thing to do first of all. Even America today, as sophisticated as they are, they produce more food the natural way, big expanse of land producing whether it's wheat, whether it's rice, whether it's corn, not dependent on GMO, even though they have the technology years and years back. Why did we allow our cultural base to die? Well, I think we know part of the reason, but it's first of all what we should depend on. The chemical, the technology, the sophistication, yes, is there to support. We should not depend on it. Biotechnology is here to stay. And it's not just on food production. Biotechnology is on almost everything. Even treatment of wastewater or whatever that you may call is biotechnology. So for me, my advocacy will be what is safer is returning to agriculture. And this is what this administration, current administration, is talking about. And we have seen the result of that. A lot of people have returned to farm. Farmers are richer today under this current administration than in the last administrations, because they have returned to real farming. GMO, they can assist, but with caution. I always say, and I will continue to say, and I will not sit and look at Nigerian and say, GMO are 100% safe. We don't know yet. Yes, they are helping, they are increasing yield, resistance to whatever that we are talking about, but what is going to happen years from now? And it's not all the different kinds of manipulation of the genes of plants or animals that may be 100% down the road. We don't know. We are not doing just one thing, but are doing different kinds of manipulation. Whether you are manipulating corn or cassava or potatoes, whatever you will be doing, the effect in corn may be different from that of cassava, from this. And this is what we are talking about. To be careful. We are watching. That's why biosafety is there to license all this. But ultimately, the best thing is we should not have allowed our agricultural base to go. Look at all this arable land. You are right. When I see little patches up in the air, I feel terrible. And when I go to, whether it's US, France, or Britain, you fly, you see a farm of thousands, continuous. Hey, even Malaysia, for God's sake. I went to Malaysia. I was driving on the road for kilometers of this.
Palm trees.
Thank you.
From the airport.
I did. Yeah. But where did they get it from?
From here, from Naifor in Benin.
Thank you. So this is what we should be more concerned about. Let GMO be an addition. Let it be as its development. We may get to that future where probably GMO may be the in thing, is totally perhaps safe by then, all the bubbles. But if you can look back 50, 100 years and find what I mentioned earlier, a paradigm shift, why will you now expect to say GMO is 100% safe before you get to that 50 years?
Well, gentlemen, I so much admire the issue of agricultural lands that you just mentioned. Yeah. But in the countries we're talking about, they don't have the issue of herdsmen, farmer issues. And these are also countries where institutions own farms. I have seen a farm owned by the military in Israel. you need to see what is there. Even in Egypt, the military owns farms and cottage industries and what have you. Because if you in Nigeria, for instance, for individuals to engage in such mechanized farming, there are just very few, Dangote, and very few of them that are involved in mechanization. And that is why most people are also thinking in terms of GMO. Right, sir, Prof. GMO is not under attack as it were on this program, but we are not looking at the possibility of ensuring that the GMO is infused into the agricultural system in a safe manner, right? So now, what are we expecting going forward? You know, because NAFDA has come to stay, and the GMO, as Minister said, has also come to stay. What should be the next step with respect to what Nigerians will expect from genetically modified organisms in Nigeria? That what, in other words, to become food items or crops, as the case may be.
Okay, let me first of all correct the impression. As you see, it's not NAFDA is not working only on agriculture. We have different sectors that NAFDA is working and producing results. So this is just one aspect that is in NAFDA, one aspect that is agriculture. And because the result is so pronounced, that is why a lot of people are crying now. That is a good advantage. At least NAFDA is working, and that is a good thing.
People are crying because you are working.
No, they are not. They are crying because, you see, anything that is new, a lot of people will talk about it.
That's right.
Anything that is new, a lot of people will be apprehensive. Look at this coronavirus jab. A lot of people are speculating fake news. And this fake news, they have no scientific basis. And likewise, in these GMO crops, this thing, there is no scientific basis. For more than 30 years, it has been done elsewhere, and it has been working. And for example, if you take America, for example, the soybean, 93% of their soybean is GMO. And this GMO is being introduced in Nigeria, and the product, as the architect was saying, the product is there. Even the mayonnaise you eat, even it's gone beyond that. It's even going into transforming the oil into lubricant used in industry, the car industry, and what have you. So there are so many advantages there, so many that can be exploited, not only for eating, so many. And when you go back, we have environment. The environment we are working on, for example, the cleaning of Ogonaland is all the biotechnology approach. And for example, we have petroleum cleaning of farm tanks. We have an understanding now with another company that is coming to establish this technology that our tank farms are being cleaned in different ways, not using enzymes. We use microorganisms, we use enzymes, we use genes. We use this to improve on the lives of people. We have industrial aspect, producing of enzymes that will work in the industry for fermentation processes and what have you. And we have genes and genomics where drugs and vaccines are developed. In the health sector, we are working now with different organizations like World Health Organization, like the African Agricultural Technology that we say, World Bank, and so many others that are contributing towards the development of biotechnology. So this agriculture that they were talking about is just one simple aspect of what biotechnology. So National Biotechnology is a big organization that is impacting on the economy and value chain of Nigeria. So that is the impression I want to correct.
You and the Minister were talking about palm trees. You saw in Malaysia or even in Indonesia, in fact across Asian tigers. Have you observed the size of those palm trees?
Big time.
The size of the palm trees,
The
and the ones
trunks.
we have in Nigeria here.
The
Our
trunks.
own is very thin. Theirs very, very big. And I'm not asking, is it not GMO that they applied?
That is what I'm trying to
tell you.
tell you.
That they applied?
There is a research that was going on. Somebody that I met, that research, you see, here in Nigeria, we have the bacteria that attack that palm tree, and it will attack it in the very, very early stage. And you don't know until it reach about 5-6 years. So if you don't know until it reach about 5-6 years, you wasted money, and this has not been detected, then it means you have lost millions of naira. So the research that they have gone there is to now detect this microorganism, the bacteria that affect, that kill this palm tree. And the quality and even the quantity of that seedling that is produced for the processing of oil is biotechnology. So they have gone far. There are so many ways that this biotechnology is working.
Professor Mustafa and Honorable Minister, now you are getting to the one question I asked earlier. What are the uses of pre-existing research institutes? I mentioned them. NIFOR, Nigerian Institute for Oil Palm Research. It's in Benin. It's in Benin.
But
It's
have
just
they
on
applied GMO? That's the point of
precisely.
them.
I also mentioned, Rubber Research Institute for the rubber tree, where you can get your latex, and we all have tires and so on and so forth. Cocoa Research Institute. I said, look, the various research outcomes that they are having, and then seeking to improve seedlings or improve yield, is that GMO? If it is not GMO, why is this species of GMO of concern, to all and sundry? Perhaps you have the opportunity of return. That's just the point I want to make, to say, is it GMO, or if that one is, if it's not GMO, or just, is it linear plain research? Why is this super GMO creating concern? We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
All right, so welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And of course, we are engaging two of our guests here in the studio, as we're already having issues with Nimo Bassi, who is reaching, or has been reaching us via Zoom. Honorable Minister, off the air, we were discussing the advantages of GMO, especially when it comes to plants. We cited an example of palm trees that we have in Nigeria, and that you saw in Malaysia or elsewhere across the Asian tigers. Now, what is it that NABDA and other research institutes must do to be able to come up with Nigeria's version of GMO as it affects either, of course, you said the cowpea and cotton that has been taking place. What are about other crops? We have yam, cocoyam, and other crops that we eat in this country. Should there be a kind of a collective effort, between NABDA and other research institutes, and of course the Ministry of Environment, to see how we can now engage in developing Nigeria's own concept of GMO that we can trust, that can be safe, that can be proved to be safe, even safer than the ones we have outside Nigeria?
Yes, I believe we can do that, and I think it's already going on. You see, the NAFDA, Minister of Environment, the institutions, even the private sector should work together, should collaborate with this. This is technology, like I earlier mentioned, is here to stay. The only thing we will want to improve it, and get to that level where, yes, we are very comfortable with the GMO, with whatever that we are consuming. And Nigeria already is doing its own research. I have seen about cassava, the cowpea that he mentioned, the cotton, and all that stuff. Nigeria is already doing its own research and producing or altering the genetics of some of our own crops. It's something that, yes, we have already acquired the knowledge, and the technology agency is there to promote. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with this, but when I was just talking about, cautiously and letting Nigerians know, just like you said, I said earlier, outside you will see the labeling. Whether you want to consume GMO food or you don't, is up to you. There's nothing wrong with that. But ours is to, yes, help make sure that the country advance technologically, biotechnology, even nanotechnology. You see, all this little condensed technology is just beginning. We are reducing, we are increasing in other ways. So there is nothing wrong with that, and Nigeria is capable. I am very aware of that, and I respect the agency. It's part of our agency, and we will work with the agency. We are working with the agency. Unless we all come together to proceed in the technological manner that the world is headed, we will be left behind. We will not stop GMO. We will continue with GMO with caution, as I've always said, and we'll continue to say that.
I just wondering, I mean, Honorable Minister, clarify this point, because is there a risk of our silo approach to management of issues likely to impact on the efficacy of policy measures? Minister of Environment, you clarify this issue. Suppose Agric says, no, let this thing come in. NAFDAC will say, no, they are safe. Another person will say, another agency will say, oh, no, we have tested them, everything is okay. Let them come. And are we seeing, or should we expect to see the synergy that is required to say, look, for now, what are those crops that have come in, either processed or semi-processed or as seedlings or otherwise? What harm, potential harm is there to the environment and ultimately to the individual himself? I would say, no, this is a policy coming from the collaboration of all agencies concerned, or is each one working in a silo?
No, we can't work in silos because then we'll not achieve anything and we'll be, banging our heads. I give you an example. NAFDAC, the Drug Enforcement the agency, is the one in charge of, like, these vaccines that are coming in. All the vaccines that came into Nigeria first will go to NAFDAC for certification and all that before even going to NCDC. If they certify that they are good for Nigerians, they go. If they are not, they don't. So the same thing with GMO. Import of GMO, export of GMO, manufacturing, research here, Federal Ministry of Environment, under the Biosafety, will now do that. And if we don't feel comfortable with a particular GMO coming, we will say no. We will not give the clearance, and that GMO will not come in. But we will work with the agency or whoever is trying to import. If we have questions that need clearing, they will have to clear those questions before we give the go-ahead. But generally, yes, we do interact. We go, we talk, we go to our functions and all other things. We have interministerial committees in a lot of these things. The Minister of Environment works with almost all the agencies. We have a number of things we are doing with science and technology. For example, even the ethanol, this is not GMO, but use of ethanol as fuel for our vehicles because of climate change. We are working with science and technology. Minister of Agriculture, we are working on several things. Water resources. So there is this collaboration already, and this biotechnology is no different.
Okay, Prof, on the issue of animal husbandry, how far has the GMO worked in that? I know you have a center somewhere in Bayelsa and somewhere up north. Let us know what is happening at those centers. Are you also involved in animal husbandry with the application of GMO?
Well, there are two aspects to that. I told you in GMO we have the natural selection and we have the genetically engineering approach. So on the issue of the livestock, we have those two aspects. Recently, we have organized a department or a unit that is going to take care of animals genetically modified system. And then prior to that, we've been working on improvement on the meat size of the livestock, and then improvement on the milk production, for example, of the livestock. That research has been on for almost 12 years now, and we have reached to a second stage whereby we domesticate the technology. We have now identified the real Nigerian livestock. For example, when we are talking about the milk production and we are talking about the bigger animal like cows. So we have passed the first stage, which is selection of the appropriate animal that could be improved. So in the second stage, which is supposed to start this 2021, we have now select Bunaji and the one other one, to Bunaji, and is Fulani traditional name. So these two has been identified, one for meat production and the other one for milk production so that we improve the milk production from like 1 or 2 liters that we are getting now to about 10, 15 liters. That is what is obtained elsewhere. Remember, a lot of people are importing cows from other countries, but remember there is adaptability. Those cows that were there have already been adopted there. So when you bring them there, the environmental factor is not favorable to them. So you see them either dying or they are not producing as expected, or even the feed that you give them is not going to be the feed that they want. Then you have to start importing the feed, all these problems. So in order to solve this, to use our own, we have delved into that research, and we have reached to the second stage, whereby it's only to improve in the meat and the milk production. And
has there been any experimentation on that?
yes, of course, of course. We have now reached.
But is it not to be imagined that the outcome of a research of this nature, which is fundamental, will be more applicable under a ranching system rather than the free roaming that we're having now?
Of course, you see, that is why even I saw you discussing about this National Livestock Transformation program that has been flagged in Nasarawa yesterday. We were there. Okay. We are part of the program, okay. And we have an area that we are keying in. That's why I told you NAFDA is about everything. In that aspect, we are into 3 aspects that we key in the program. One is this one that I've mentioned to you, the milk and meat production improvement on our local variety. And 2 is the production of the feed, that is the grasses that these are going to eat, because we have improved the grasses up to the certain level of high protein content.
So we don't have to import grass from Brazil, as was suggested a few years ago.
No, we have done that. That is why I met with His Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, and he linked us with the National Chairman, National Livestock Transformation Program, Dr. Andrew, and we have been working together smoothly. And then the other one is on the environment, where the ranching.
Okay. All right. Professor Mustafa, we're having to interrupt you. We understand that Zoom to Numobasi. Numobasi, I mean, it's unfortunate this is the intervention of tech. So just let's have your thoughts on this aspect. What caution do we need to further exercise? There's a point you made, though, to which there has been no response, again, because we have not asked Professor Mustafa to respond to that. How much intelligence we are gathering from elsewhere around the world to guide us. Mexico, you said, has already frozen the utilization of GMO for corn cultivation. But tell us some more what your attitude is towards GMOs and what we need to do.
Thank you very much, and I hope this holds for a few moments so I could share a few points. The whole issue about GMO, especially this regulation, is the issue of risk. It's because there's a risk in GMOs. That's why there's a regulatory framework to monitor and ensure that things are not done in a way that would be harmful, or that risks are minimized. One of the issues why our research institutions are not focusing so much on I would say agroecology, for example, on agricultural system that works very well for us, is the source of funding, lack of funding. We don't have sufficient funding from government to institutions, and this is a challenge for generally institutions and universities. And so we need to see more funding going to these institutions so they can help find ways of growing crops and producing food in a safer way that is less risky than what the GMOs are providing. And of course, we're talking about old school GMOs, more or less. There's a new version that is called gene drive, that I may call extinction technology. It's a technology whereby a species can be engineered out of existence. In other words, you can engineer, for example, a species of goats, and all the options will be a particular sex, and then after a couple of years, they will totally wiped out. So we need to be careful about the effect on our biodiversity. The biosecurity risk is also a big issue, and the fact that things can drastically go wrong. I think we need to understand that as much as plantation agriculture looks very attractive, we need to find agricultural system that produces healthy soils. GMOs depend on chemicals, they depend on either herbicides or whatever, and these do not produce healthy soils. They depend also on artificial fertilizers, and we need to find a system of agriculture, which is what our people are already practicing, which needs to be enhanced, that enriches the soil and helps to fight global warming. This is one of the major ways fighting global warming, besides stopping deforestation. So it can help, but industrial agriculture goes in the wrong direction, creating more problems by releasing more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The other thing I should mention is that we're having emergencies in a part of the country, like for example, in the Middle East, in Northeast, where farms have been attacked and crops destroyed. Has anybody tested the seeds that have been donated to be planted by the farm? Are they indigenous seeds? Are they organic seeds? Are they seeds that farmers can harvest and save and replant? Or are they things that will now hook farmers to the market, to the seed sellers? This is one other challenge that most present, because when you plant the seeds, harvest once and replant, you may have a good at the first season, but if you keep those seeds to replant, you're going to have diminished harvest. And this is by design. It's something we experience with hybrids, and you have to always go back to the market to buy more seeds every time you're going to plant. And this would impoverish our farmers. It's not our system of food production. There's been very many researches done about how to take care of pests, to take care of seeds using biological means. There are farms close to Abuja where you are, where you could see this working, and there's really no need to jump to a system that is extremely harmful.
So are you actually saying that there's no need at all for Nigeria to engage in GMO when, of course, we have a regulatory agency that can determine whether it is safe or not? Just in a nutshell.
Nigeria does not need GMOs. I don't have any about that at all. The issues that go, we don't need GMO, at least we don't need it in the next foreseeable future. It may be maybe the next generations to come that may become important. But right now, if we support our farmers, we have the capacity to produce enough food for Nigerians, right? 70% of the food produced in the world today are produced by small-scale farmers. Only 30% are by big farmers who are using 70% of resources. So we should look at the balance of resources and the productivity. GMOs don't necessarily have higher yield than natural crops. This is a very clear, we've seen this in research in comparing organic corn grown in Europe to GMO corn grown in the US.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. I wish we had more time with you. The Zoom didn't help matters, in the earlier part of the program. We'd like to thank you, Architect Nimo Bassi, Director Health of Mother Earth Foundation. Thank you indeed for being part of our program this morning. And the Honorable Minister of Environment, Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning.
Thank you.
And of course, the Director General of National Biotechnology Development Agency, NABDA, Professor Abdullahi Mustafa. Thank you indeed for sharing your thoughts with us on this particular issue.
Thank you.
All right, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria for today. We'd like to thank you for being with us. Good Morning Nigeria, of course, is broadcast every weekday. That's Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. So the program is back on Monday. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy your weekend. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian Umair. Have a great weekend.